So good afternoon, everyone, dear panelists. My name is Theodora Helimäki. I will be moderating this discussion. I am a political scientist and I focus on voting behavior and the use of information in political choices. So the independence of media is a very unique and interesting question. I am happy to be joined here on stage by Judith Fiebelkorn from Germany, who is a senior editor of N-Ost, head of Europolitics, and the editorial coordinator of European Focus. Then we have Robert Sundman, who is from Finland, a political journalist currently employed at Suomen Kuvalehti. And last but not least, we have Laurent Merchant from France, who is a deputy editor-in-chief to European and International Affairs at OST France. So welcome, everyone. Glad to have all of you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks. So to kick off, you come from very different backgrounds as media personnel, editors-in-chief, journalists. So maybe just a few words. What perspective will you be taking today when talking about the media independence?
Well, I am working for a Berlin-based media NGO, and we are a European network of journalists, and we try to establish collaborations between media outlets all over Europe, and we mostly work with small and medium-sized media. So, yeah, I would say this is my focus, and also non-profit media organizations. We not only work with them because I met Laurent before, because we tried to establish a cooperation with West France, but yeah, mostly with small and medium-sized media.
Great.
Well, my view is, of course, from the Finnish media. I'm a journalist. I have previously worked at Helsingin Sanomat and in Yle, the Finnish broadcasting company. So I've seen both the private newspapers and also the state-owned broadcasting company. Of course, my view is very Finnish. We Finns are often very proud to be in the first or second or third positions in various surveys, which are, for example, researching independence of media. But that doesn't mean that I still don't see any problems in this area. So I try to be critical also.
Great.
So I come from West France, which is the main daily newspaper in France, the number one on the print edition and in the top 3 on the internet edition. And we are quite an exception because we are really an independent group out of some economical interest. So I think talking about independence, there are 2 main directions for the discussion from my point of view. The one is quite a traditional one. I mean, the pressure from political world or economical world exists since the beginning of the press. All the story of the press has had to fight with that problem. But the second direction of reflection, of course, is the big revolution, confusion. I don't know what is the right term to describe the digital revolution and its consequences, not only on the job of journalists, of the reality of editors, but also of the way people take information and follow the news. So these are two different approaches, I think, and we will develop these ideas.
Yes, thank you. So very different approaches, different perspectives, which is good for any discussion. And Laurent, you already kind of touched upon this, because my next question to all of you would be that concerning this independence, like what are your perceptions of the state of independence of the media? So maybe, Laurent, since you started on that.
In France or in general?
Both.
Okay. So in France, we are probably number one in the ranking of talking about human rights and freedom. It's not necessarily the reality in the facts, because for press independence, if you look at the owners of every big newspaper you can know, Le Monde, Le Figaro, Libération, Les Échos, they all belong to big economical interests. The Figaro is for defense industry, Dassault. Les Échos, which is a good newspaper of economic matters, but it is LVMH, Louis Vuitton, Bernard Arnault. Le Monde, Niel, which is one of the major actors of Telefonia, Internet, is one of the major investors. So every big French newspaper, there is a concentration. The matter we discuss a lot in France in this period is about Bolloré. I don't know if you know who is Bolloré, which is an entrepreneur from Brittany, from my region, the region of West France, which is also the owner of two television canals, Canal Plus and C8. One is All News Information. Last year, he bought the main daily news of every Sunday edition, Le Journal du Dimanche, and also the first editor of books, and which is also the first editor for children books. So in the position, there is the problem of dominant position, of course, very clear. And this problem is more acute by the fact he's very involved in an ideological pro-Le Pen campaign on every issue that can divide the society, about security, migrants. It's exactly the agenda of Le Pen. So there is a problem very sensitive in the actual French political landscape because of this power every year more important of this major actor in the media. So this is a classical, traditional problem of independence, how to fight, because independence is always a fight, even inside the redaction. No? You have always to fight. So it's a job for fighters, I mean, to keep free, to defend this independence. But especially in this economical context of the French press, this is really a problem. I don't want to make advertising for my newspaper, but we are quite an exception because really West France belongs to an association with no but non lucratif, as we say in France. So no, the purpose is not to make money, which like The Guardian. The Guardian is a foundation. We have quite a similar juridical organization. So it means that there is no investor inside the board able to orient this newspaper. That is the reality now. The evolution of the business model perhaps is less secure for the next future.
Yeah, very interesting points, especially on the economic interests that many may have. Robert, you already mentioned in your introduction that Finland is actually doing relatively fine with everything. What is your perception on that, especially from the Finnish and comparing it to other countries?
Yeah, if I continue from this, Lawrence, great speech and also how things are working out in France, I think that Finland is quite a different country and also a very different kind of a language area. We are quite a small language. We have a small group of people in this country, and that also poses a a big challenge for our media because as we know that the advertisement revenue is constantly slowing, it's falling down, it's going to big social media corporations, and then we are not able to maintain such a big press in Finland anymore because we just have the amount of people that we have in Finland, and that's not many, and Finnish language is not widely understood in different countries. So, for example, there are not people in the United States who are ordering Helsingin Sanomat, but there are many people in Finland who are ordering the New York Times, and that is also one thing that I'm constantly thinking about is this media polarization, that the people who are very interested in the quality press, in quality media in Finland, they have all the magazines and newspapers in the world that they can choose from. They can order New York Times, what is it, like $2 a month or something like that when they want to read the digital edition. And then they have the Helsingin Sanomat there, and it's more expensive, and it's only about the Finnish matters. Maybe if you try it, it's something like 10 euros a month, but it's more. So that's one thing I'm increasingly worried about, that the people who want to pay for their news subscriptions are paying for like medias outside of Finland, but then the Finnish media is in big problems. And also then, if we think that this is a polarizing question, that we have these people who are very keen on quality and they want to spend money on media, then there are the other maybe end that they think that they are getting their news from TikTok and various social media platforms, and they are not interested on funding the traditional media anymore.
Very good points and interesting. How about, what would you say, Judith?
Well, I would say that from a European perspective, we tend to focus on the most obvious cases like Poland and Hungary, but we shouldn't forget that media independence is at risk all over Europe. Like, we have SLAPs, strategic lawsuits against journalists in Italy a lot, which are where actually politicians or business people are trying to intimidate journalists and to avoid a certain coverage. We have threats and violence against journalists in Germany, especially since the pandemic, and we have a huge loss of trust in media coverage concerning the war in Gaza. We have Greece, where there was the killing of a journalist just 3 years ago, which went unpunished, and there was a spy scandal which is somehow connected to the government, but nobody really knows. And my point is that there are so many small facets of this problem and this topic that we shouldn't forget.
Yeah, very good points, and I like that all of you brought a slightly different aspect of it. And it seems like this is a big issue, but can we say that, for example, comparing Europe to the other parts of the world, since we are in the EU and most of the regulations concern all of us, would you say, could you give some kind of perspective in the global context? Are we doing okay in Europe in terms of independence? Are we doing not so okay? Do you have any views on this?
Well, it depends on the country, I would say. I mean, of course, in Finland, it's a totally different situation than in Romania or Italy or the Czech Republic, where the most important media not a long time ago belonged to a business consortium very, very close, or even owned by the former prime minister. So I don't know. That's my
that's a good point. It's and of course, when we talk about media, we talk about the society and culture and political culture and all different aspects. So of course, our media is different in here than in other European countries. So of course, you can compare the whole continents, but you can also compare the countries and actually see quite big differences there. One of the maybe Finnish thing that I would like to add in the independence topics is also that because of the small language areas I previously mentioned, we don't have a lot of big newspapers actually. We have just one, and that's also, I think, an independence thing. So if you compare to for example, even Sweden, Denmark, but not even mentioning the bigger European countries than meaning France and Germany, you could see that there is quite a selection, and also that also means independence, that you have different points of view, different editorial stances, different traditions, different maybe coverage areas, and when you have a smaller country, then it also means that it's like a smaller coverage.
And I would say it also depends on what you define as Europe. I mean, Belarus and Russia are part of Europe, Turkey is, so yeah, that's a completely different story.
Anyway, investigation is always difficult, even in Finland, as they told me, no? Because there are some problems, recent problems with some newspapers. Difficult to say where is the best place, because there is a nominal independence, as I described it. I mean, of course, the owner is not, it's important to know who is the owner of the media you read. But there is also risky situations, I think to Mexico, where very brave journalists are risking their life to make investigation in a context very dangerous, terrible, and a lot of journalists are killed in Mexico. In Italy, for example, you have both a caricature of political control on RAI and the public media, but you have also 22 journalists under police protection, because they made investigation on the mafia or everywhere, also in Rome. So you find this kind of courageous investigation all over the world, but the comment on dit le microsystème, the playing field where you operate as a journalist or as an editor, of course, is different if you are in Finland or in Mexico. Of course, it's very different. So we have to preserve that playing field. That's the point. And from my point of view, this playing field has been broken by digital platform. And it's very difficult to recompose this puzzle.
Yeah, very good points. And most of all, it is indeed so that the media reflects the society, the culture, the political situation, and whether you have like ideological agendas, also digitalization is very true. But it seems that still we have this like European Union level who is also concerned about the current situation of media freedom and the media market, so to speak. As in the European Union, on September 2022, it was proposed that there be set some kind of European Media Freedom Act, exactly because of the independence of media, the ensuring some kind of pluralism, which seems to be the problem in Finland as well, digitalization, as Laurent mentioned, which has come to play a very different role, and also something that you mentioned, which has been pinpointed as a problem in the European Union, is this cross-border operation, where, as you said, markets also differ depending on the language, depending on the size of the nation. So actually this European Media Freedom Act entered into force in May 2024, so just now. Actually in Finland, regarding this, just a few weeks ago, we again had a new thing to protect the people who appear in media and their honor, so to speak. But the whole idea of the European Media Freedom Act is to actually establish a new board for media services that would protect the editorial independence, journalistic sources, the independence of public media, the transparency of media ownership, and a safeguard against content removal, which relates to probably different sources, to guarantee the transparency in state advertising, and also to boost the transparency in audience measurement and media pluralism and editorial independence. So if we are creating these kind of things, and even the EU sees a need for that. Do you feel like this will help, or is there even a chance that the existing national and European regulations, are they effective? Because there are some. Are they effective, and why is there a need for this kind of big change?
It's probably, I don't know, because it will be operational next year, no, I think?
It already is now in May 24. Now it started, it's already running, but the Board for Media Services will be effective from February 25.
I think it's a tool, a new tool, important, like from a jurisdictional point of view. I mean, the problem of populist parties were pushing our democracy close to autocracy is that they want to break always the same thing, no? The independence of the judges and the independence of the media. That is the two main instruments they use. And we saw it still in Hungary and Poland also during the peace government. So the more we have instruments at European level to temperate this destructive operation, the best it is from my point of view, because Poland was, without the European instruments of keeping Poland inside the group by the financial tool, probably Poland would be in another sphere now. So I think it's important to reinforce all these juridical instruments, even when they seem to be too bureaucratic or too weak, but they are still important when you are in the real concrete matter of some country which is going out of our state of rule.
I'm not opposing any EU-wide media regulation. That's not the point of what I'm going to say next. But I'm not sure if I think about the situation we have, for example, when I think about the Eastern Finland region bordering Russia, big countryside, places where they are losing their local newspapers because there are not enough people to pay for them, and then they are also losing the local journalism in those areas, that they don't have any more newspapers or media outlets covering the issues of those places, because it's not good business to have journalistic outlets there. And then all the information that is provided for those people is coming from social media. So then that's a challenge, and I'm not sure what the European-wide regulation can do for that. And I understand that it's for different things, but I just want to point out that the challenges we are having, they are not maybe they are maybe not those challenges that this kind of legislation is trying to fix.
Good point.
Yeah, I'm not opposing either, but I would also say that this kind of one-size-fits-all approach maybe doesn't fit here. Because, for example, in Germany, we have very well-defined regulations on media independence, but still there are problems. And these problems are so distinct from what we see in Poland, where they actually have to survive what is left. And so I'm not sure if this can really do anything in this direction.
Yeah, all of you brought up that this is more of a legislative thing. It's like de facto what it will do. Well, maybe it will help those countries that are actually struggling, like Poland, Hungary. And it's kind of like leveling the field. So do you see that maybe in the future there could be this, like what this aims to do, this kind of more unified media field where there could be more communication between different countries?
More than unified media landscape, it's more state of l'état de droit, which is the key point for me. And the media information in this context is a very sensitive issue. So the more stronger the rule of law, the better it is also for media. the only point on that aspect.
I would be, of course, very interested about all the ideas and regulations the European Union could develop, for example, to give some of the money that these big corporations like Meta or others that are using the information provided for them by journalistic media, that some of the money could be maybe given back to fund journalistic operations in the European Union. But I'm not very hopeful, but this would be nice if something like this would happen. Yes, but maybe to like make it even stronger than it is now.
When preparing for this panel, I checked the website of this European Media Freedom Act, and below these regulations, the EU is stating what they are doing in terms of supporting independent media, and they have a few grants. And I'm especially focusing on this because small and medium-sized media are highly reliant on public grants, especially from the EU. And I have the numbers in mind that they supply 5 million euros for 2 years project, which is ridiculous, I would say. And also, it doesn't have any aspect of sustainability if you have to develop a project or a website, as the EU wants it to be, like digital reporting about EU affairs. And then after 2 years, the funding stops, and nobody knows what's going to happen with this.
Yeah, so does the EU understand the playing field then of how the media independence can be supported? That's a very tough question. That's a very tough question.
You have perhaps the answer. My impression is the platform is a major issue, more important, because ask Elon Musk to put local redaction along the frontier with Russia, if he has some money to do that. So the problem of independence of the last century was what we were talking about now. But we are in a new century, and the economic model is completely different. And the problem of independence is to have a business model which you can keep on the medium term. And that is really a problem. And I understand that in Finland, the size, you have a lot of newspapers, but the size, of course, of the audience is not so large. So the transition to the digital economic model is problematic for that.
It's a question of business model, of course, but it's also a question of the audiences. So we are like the newer generations. For them, the idea that the journalistic content is more valuable than any content there is, it's not also always very clear. And that's also an issue I'm worried about. So, of course, you need to have a business model, but in order to have a business model, you also need to have customers who value journalism and want to pay for it. And I'm very worried about the situation that there are increasingly these new audiences that think, for example, that their main source of news is TikTok. And it's not wrong. It's okay to use TikTok for your source of news. But then the journalistic corporations who make journalism, they don't get any money from TikTok. So that's the problem.
I know that tax regulation is nothing that is decided in Brussels or Strasbourg. But there is no country in the EU where journalism is considered as a non-profit tax regime, so which is valuable for the society. And if this would happen, like if this were introduced into tax regimes, it would make it much easier for donors, especially foundations, to fund small or medium-sized media, non-profit media especially. And this would be something I would say is more important.
Yeah, so it seems that we have a big problem in payment and budgeting, which seems to have many challenges. Yes, people don't subscribe, or then there is like no funding. But where would you see then? Isn't that again a tricky problem with independence, because it will very much depend who the funder is? Public media. We also in Germany and in Finland, I'm not sure how it is in France, but we have this like tax that goes to the main public media. So kind of we are, as citizens are already, every one of us is paying that tax, but that is not enough? Or should we have like if we have private funders, doesn't that then create the problem of, wait, but is this media then partial to those funders' interests?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, there's no 100% independent media, I would say, but there are different levels of dependence on donors, funders, subscriptions, yeah, all of these.
It's all about the combination that you have, like the previous working model for newspaper was that it got, of course, the advertisement revenue and then also the subscription payments. And then when you had both, you don't have to, you can also make independent journalism because if some of the advertisers leave, it's okay because we have the subscribers. And of course, maybe if the subscribers don't like the stories, you can always say, well, you don't have to subscribe. So you still have the money coming from the advertisement revenue. But if you just have only one of these, or maybe neither, or only public funding, then you have a problem. So you, of course, want to secure funding from different places in order to maintain independence.
Yeah, subscription is old from the 18th century. I mean, not the best way to be independent. You have subscribers, they pay, you publish the review or newspaper, and you, in that case, you are really independent. It is also the way Le Monde, for example, succeeded in that strategy to have a lot of internet subscribers in order to have a percentage very high of in the budget of subscribers, and we are trying to do the same. But it's not enough in this transition because the erosion, you have to know, for example, West France, I have the numbers here. We are still, no, I had a look yesterday on a French report, and in 1945, 1950, after the war, there were 10 million print newspapers in France every day. There were 10 million in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, until 2000, it was quite 9 million. It was okay. In the last 20 years, we are now in 5 million. In France, only 5 million. And West France is 500,000, so we're quite 10% of print edition in France. So it's a revolution, and this erosion can be very quick, as we saw in America, where a lot of local newspapers disappeared because of this transition. They're the first country where everything on that matter happened 10, 15 years ago. But we are seeing the same thing, same process in Europe, because it is a process. We have the same. And it is internet transition to a new economy. But we have the money of this new economy, not the European editors. They are the American platforms. And this is the point. They made a monster and the biggest holdup of the recent history, no? Because the monster is that they publish more contents that have ever been produced in the history of humanity, but they are accountable and responsible of nothing. But the money comes back to their home. So this diabolic system, we accepted, because I remember to have seen President Sarkozy welcoming the CEO of Google 15 years ago, say, oh, Mr. Google, hello, welcome. You gave me 5 million euro of a check of 5 million euro for French editors. But Google made more money than 5 million with French contents. And with Hollande, it was the left government, the same CEO of Google came again to another fund of 5 million to help French edition, and the money is going back to Google. So this revolution is technological, but it's a business model without accountability. And and also in another perverse system, not only for the media. You are managing your bank account, no? You are doing your flight ticket. You are doing a lot of things. It's not self-service. It's not automatic. It's not the machine. You are working for doing that. And the big platform were really extraordinary because you are working for them freely. And your data, but also your work, is going back to their business model, but not to editor business model. So we are fighting with the monster they created, which is also a boomerang, because Trump is a fruit, the polarization of the American society, which is on the edge of ever implosion, is also the effect of this revolution, because the public sphere has been destroyed. So we have to rebuild a public sphere regulated. It's not so easy, because a public sphere with TikTok or with Google is not possible. But who is enough strong to catch out Google or TikTok? Nobody. Because they say, we are welcome, Mr. President, Mr. CEO of Google, 5 million is good. Our politicians are not powerful. They have no power. So this is a key point for the economy of media. So of course, I'm not utopic to say we can win this battle, but we can talk about that, no? Because this is, for me, the real point. They took the contents freely and they are not accountable. Because if there would be editors, the business model would be break in 2 weeks. So they are not. But it's for me, the main issue.
Can I ask a question to you both? How close you are with your audiences? Are you asking them what are their problems, what they want you to investigate on? Because I really see that this could be also a change that journalism and media needs to face, not only from a business point of view, but from an editorial point of view. That doesn't mean to feed the audiences what they want to read or what they want to hear, but maybe get a bit closer to them and make them pay for the media.
Yes and no. So of course, for example, my work is very like I do a lot of different things. I write, of course, articles, but we also do, for example, podcast, and in those kind of platforms, we are maybe doing more work to engage with our audiences. But maybe in the more traditional work line, or for example, the print magazine, no, there we are not maybe engaging that much.
We are both a local newspaper and a general newspaper. So the reason why the erosion of our print audience is more slow than the erosion very quick of Parisian newspaper is because we are on the ground. So every morning, like in Finland, if I understand well the situation here, you have in your box a newspaper, no? We have 450,000 subscriptions receive at home every morning. So you have a relation with your readership every day for that. And it brings us to be more in contact, that's true, more near the real preoccupation of the people. When the Gilets jaunes, now you remember the, how do you say in English,
the yellow vests
movement began, the first reaction we had in the redaction was, oh, we didn't see it happen, no? Probably we see it before other newspapers which have not this contact to the reality with the small redaction all over the country, which is very important. That is democracy. In America, where in the States, where the local newspaper disappeared, Trump is not 55%, is 80%. So it's not only the middle West for historical and cultural reasons who vote Trump. There is a real democratic alarm and problem with the absence of local news. So you're right, we have to engage more. We do it. We are working about that. I'm a little bit diffident on the mode effect of some practice because, I mean, if you have information and news, people buy it, even on the web.
Would you like to give your reflection on your own question?
No, I mean, as I said, I see a lot of potential in this. In Germany, we have a few very small media which have had a huge impact. For example, Correctiv, they published an investigation on a meeting of highly ranking Nazis with business people, and they published about their plans on remigrating Germans, basically, Germans who have come to Germany like 10 years ago or 2 generations ago. And yeah, actually there was a huge outcry and huge demonstrations. And so this is just one example of a media outlet which is very much engaged with their audience. They have like weekly questions for the readers in their newsletters, and it's working pretty well.
Yes, this is also a very important thing. All the time that we are talking, I start thinking from my perspective as a political scientist, and what I teach my students, for example, are these different theories of media and politics, where you either have this like so you reflect either very ideologically what is going on, and that is oftentimes if there is a strong grip on power, like we can see in some European countries, as you mentioned. Some voices are silenced. Now, this sounds more like this clientelistic approach of where you increase your readership numbers by asking, well, what do you want to read? Then there are the business models, which are with advertisers and stakeholders and so on. But especially when we talk about, of course, this kind of clientelism thing, then we talk about social media. So we talk a lot about the audiences. And as you mentioned, all of you kind of pointed to that, like, do they actually know what is real journalism? What is the truth? And we are in a societal state where we have this big issue of fake news, of trust, of what is true. And how does that relate to the independence? Because then also, well, and we know from behavior that people look for information that conforms with their ideas. So if we ask them what they want, they would want, do they know what they want? And how can this be battled?
When you have a look on the audience reports, you would change job the day after, because the number one in the audience statistics, it's always the trash story. Yeah? It's the low-level story. That's the point. And the New York Times is making money not with the big investigation, with les mots croisés. How do we say it?
Games. Yeah, games, oui. Puzzles.
Voilà. So you have to be very modest when you are talking about the correlation between audience and contents, because the reality is not very sympathetic. But anyway, we have to do it. So that's a problem. We are in this big transition with boxing on a playing field where the rules are not fair, because they are dominant actors who doesn't pay their tribute to our legal playing field. We are trying to do something. The DSA, Digital Service Act, are very important, but it's not enough. And we are in this transition to find monies and to keep the profession we had until now. But it's not so. The statistic, we have to be careful with the audience, because, and also the time people is reading, because you can have 150 million visitor, but how much time they spend really to read and reflect. It's not, you can experience it every day. Take a print. If you don't read any more newspaper, print newspaper, take one, and you will see, you read in another way, no? So we are on two worlds.
I don't know if I have so much to add to this. Of course, the tabloidization is also a big topic in Finland, being this year maybe, but it's not my job, and I'm not responsible for example, my publisher to be the one who brings in the money. So I also understand very much the senior editors who are constantly battling with this question that we need to make serious journalism, but we also need to get people in. So,
but for example, we're on the top three of internet information websites in France, but more than 80% of our revenue is from the print industrial model. After 15 years, 20 years. So,
yeah, and that's a completely different situation in Finland if you compare to newspapers here. But I needed just to add that if you have noticed, if you look at Finnish media, the games are also very big here nowadays. Maybe a year or two, like you've seen this change. That maybe we have tried to learn from New York Times, and now you can see games in our media websites as well. More games, yes.
Do you have something to add, Judith?
No, thanks.
Well, we have been talking a lot about the problems, but what do you see some kinds of potential, do you see any potential remedies for keeping the media independent? Maybe if you can kind of summarize the future hopes. Let's look hopefully to the future. What do you wish to see?
To continue the fight, freedom has ever been. I mean, you can't be on pause model. We have to probably to talk more, to describe more. I'm very surprised because I'm an old man now, but to see hundreds of millions of people going on TikTok, and they don't think even for 1 second their own personal data is finishing in some room in Beijing on the Communist Chinese Party. Nobody think about that. Or in Texas too, or not so well in California too, which is quite the same in this moment to Elon Musk. So possible that all humanity is so blind. That's a real problem. So we have not to fix only on this issue, not to be hysterical or pessimistic, but we can talk about that, no? And if you say it again in a pedagogical way, perhaps somebody will say, okay, perhaps an independent source is better, no? That the Chinese Communist Party. And in that way, young people will be educated because it's an education problem also. So I think we can do it. And also stop with the lie that you can have something free. They make, like the drug dealers, the platform, the same strategy. The cocaine for 10 euros, information for €1. It is the same strategy. You have to break that. No, it's not good when we see it. Drug is a real social problem in France and everywhere. I think, I don't know in Finland, but in France it's a serious problem. And disinformation is a serious problem. So we have to take that in a positive, serious way, but we have to talk about that, not to say, okay, everybody does it, so it's okay. No, it's not okay at all, even if everybody does it. That's the point. So I think, and so the message has to be pay to be informed, not for a cooperative reaction, but for a democratic issue. Pay who you want, but pay. Information as a cost.
Very good point.
I've been also skeptical towards the social media platforms, and also very critical towards how they are working and how they are somehow maybe also stealing from traditional media. But because it would be nice that we are not all totally agreeing, I would also like to add to Lauren's point that it's also a question that how we in the media are doing our work. And sometimes it's very helpful to like take the mirror and look and maybe do some reflection. For myself, I think it's that we are so afraid in the traditional media that what is going to happen, and maybe are panicking a little. And when you are panicking, you are not maybe able to do like the right choices and maybe the like bold choices. Because you are so afraid that something is going to happen, and you see the erosion, you see that your business model is going towards it's going towards its end. So then you are afraid, and then you like just try to hold on what you have and do stupid clickbait stories because you need to get the people in. But maybe just like take a breathe in, breathe out, relax, think that what is it that people want from us, what's very important, what they are willing to pay, and then maybe do some bold choices as well, not just the easiest one. And it's also a challenge for us. So I'm blaming TikTok, but I'm blaming also traditional media.
Well, I would like to put the spotlight a bit further east. And I just wanted us to remind of the severe conditions under which media in Ukraine are working right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that independent media will be crucial one day when this war is over, because now there is a necessary, somehow necessary concentration of power, and one day the war is over, there will be the need for a decentralization, and they will need to deal with all that Russia is doing to them right now, and then the role of independent media will be crucial. But also, I think that for the whole of Europe, we were talking about this in the lunch break, and that's why it's coming to my mind right now. Exiled Russian or Belarusian media play a crucial role, I would say. I don't put any hopes in them in provoking any change inside their countries, because that's simply not possible by the numbers and the reach they have. But they might have a reach on Russian-speaking audience within the EU, which need to be integrated somehow, and which need to be explained what the EU is, what Europe is, how we are living in France or Germany or Spain. And so, I would say that cooperations with these media are very, very important, and that's my perspective.
Yeah, very good points about exactly education, which is critical thinking as well. Accountability, I think, was mentioned quite a few times. That is also very, very crucial. Well, we have kind of rounded well the discussion, and I was thinking that we could also open the floor to the audience if you would have any kind of questions to our panelists. At least there are already a few hands there in the very back first.
My name is Vijay. I come from UNICEF, but I'm not representing my organization. I'm here in my personal capacity. My question to you, the panelists, we've been talking of the decline of print newspapers, but we're not talking about the influence of AI on how it would affect the independence of the media. To me, I'm a former journalist from the print newspaper, so I understand the decline of print. But that's a whole story now. What is happening today and what is likely to happen in the future in terms of AI with respect to independence of media? Anybody from the panel?
Yeah, I don't know if the audience online heard, but the question was mainly on AI, just to shorten it a bit. So please, anyone?
This is a threat number one on the digital sphere, of course. And David Colon, which intervened this morning, was saying now there are more, where in America, more fake websites than real website. Sorry? Sites of local newspaper, fake. So that's the point. But until we don't resolve the initial vulnus of the platform created with money, contents without responsibility, which is, for me, the main vulnus at the beginning, because you can't make fake industry of 10 print newspaper. You imagine what would it be? It was not possible. On internet, it is possible, because nobody is responsible, accountable of what happened. So if you open the bar to everybody who want to give contents in that place to everybody, of course, the criminals are the first to understand and to come. And all the criminals of the world are doing disinformation for that. And with artificial intelligence, we had scale number 1, and with artificial intelligence, we are scale number 10. No, it's a huge quantitative evolution for that disinformation. So, but we have an initial hole in our racket. Now, there is a problem. Until we don't resolve this, for me, we will run after an impossible solution.
Yeah, thank you. We had another question. Probably you'll get the microphone. If you just raise your hand again, there was another question at least.
I just would like to take up the journalistic traditions that are very different in European countries. And they reflect also the independence or dependence. And the question is especially to Ouest de France, or I mean the French press. Here in Finland, we like to think that we are we have the so-called Anglo-Saxon tradition of being very as neutral as possible when reporting things. And while in France, it's very well known and very accepted that you have what you call presse d'opinion, reflecting the opinion very clearly. And so among the correspondents, foreign correspondents, we always were joking that we read a story written in Le Monde and in Le Figaro, and it's quite different between each other, and then we read Financial Times to know what exactly happened. So
I do the same, yeah.
Yes. And now that your newspaper, I read very often Ouest de France because it's one of the, in my opinion, you are very neutral. So how do you see the development in France about that?
La contiguïté des journalistes avec la politique, so it would be that.
Can be politics or can be
economics.
Dependent, yes, both.
Yeah. It's what I said at the beginning, yes, the contiguity with economic interests is too evident, no? I respect my colleagues of Le Monde, but I don't remember a very tough article on Niel, on the owner. But rich men buy newspaper not to spread information, but to make sure that the newspaper will not speak about them. No, it's just, Berlusconi did it. Everybody did it. It's the same, always the same reason they spend, because they don't earn money with newspaper. They spend money, but no newspaper is talking about them. So, in France, it's a problem. I agree with you. In 2015, during the attack, for example, there is a block in France about the origin of a terrorist attack. You have to read Italian, English, American newspaper to understand who is the terrorist. Because in France, you can't say the origin, you can't have statistic, it's taboo. But to the point that you have to read foreign newspaper in the first time, because it's a long story. But you're right, we are fighting for that to change, but the economical independence is the key answer to your question. I remember there is also another evolution. Beuve-Méry, which was the medical director of Le Monde after the war, the founder and director of the redaction of Le Monde, which was a Protestant, very, very rigid, very, ethical proof in the profession. And the message he gave to his journalists was, make it boring. But make it right, but make it boring. Now, if I don't know if you have the same experience, but I hear a lot of colleagues in the Rédaction en Chef who say, we have to make funny piece on the web, no? Because to attract, no? So you imagine the evolution from make it boring to be serious at make it funny to sell. It's really a different approach. So I think we have to be serious, and people, when you see the statistic on internet, when you have a good news, a real information, it always works. You make audience. It's sure. So this is positive. You have to do our job, not to respond. For your question about French contamination of politics, yes, the contiguity in Paris is too strong. That's true. Probably it's because we are outside of Paris that we are less under pressure.
We didn't discuss about the covering of what's happening in the European Union, and also such a small amount of real European outlets that follow what's happening in Brussels. But to complete your punchline, I would like to add that if I really want to know what's happening in Brussels, I also read Financial Times, and that's quite sad because there should be English outlets in the European Union area also to do that.
But during the Euro crisis, Financial Times was not the good address to read.
Many views. We have some more questions.
Isn't the independence of the media problem, isn't that a simple question of quality? There has been a loss of quality. People are still willing to pay for quality, as Judith said in her example about the local news, and I think what Laurent also said, I think now there are only those who want to read who want to do the crosswords, those are left, but you have lost all the ones who are interested in quality, and I think the job of the media is to hold the powerful accountable, and the media has just lost. Now you have Elon Musk buying the US elections as we speak, and we have just Bezos buying the Washington Post, and the media has simply failed in doing the job, and people
But this is a European discussion, right? Now you're talking about the United States.
Is it so much different in the United States?
I think it is. Still, I know what you're talking about, but I still think that there are a lot of differences if you compare, for example, Finland to the United States. I'm not sure if I'm wrong, but that's how I see the issue.
Do you want to add something to your questions too? No?
Quality, and also the work it needs to give real information. It needs quality, and you don't have to try to be advertising, comment dire, les rédactions de journaux ont eu tendance à suivre la mode, alors qu'en fait, il suffit de faire le travail fondamental. Enfin, il suffit, c'est notre travail, c'est ça qu'il faut faire, donc chercher des informations. And local news is very important for that, because I see my colleagues. So when I'm for foreign affairs, so I'm more with diplomat or expert analysts that with normal people. But my colleagues who are working in a redaction in a small town, they are still doing the job to give informations. Nobody else has, and this is important to be present. It's what we were saying, to be present on the ground, because this is the first front of the information.
We have another question, or did you want to add?
Yeah,
yes, please.
I wouldn't want to complain about the audiences, because people are how they are, and of course we have to serve them quality, but we also have to make them be interested in our stories. So we have to write our stories the way they can actually process the information. And as I said, audience engagement, I think that's crucial, because people are dealing with all kinds of issues in their daily life, and nobody's ever talking about this, although they very often have a broader impact on society or politics. I think also we as journalists, we also have to to go through some change of mindset, I would say.
Go ahead.
Mikko Salo from Faktabari. Just two questions on accountability. Do you think that you have managed to keep the digital power that we discussed? And you are always saying, and I agree, that that's the big problem. Have you been able to keep this digital power accountable? And basically, as you represent accountable journalism, that you are accountable to your audiences, you're accountable to different type of codes, like the platforms are not at the moment. So are you able to kind of unite with the accountable journalism type of thing and make your case heard? Because, I mean, now the only big source of funding might be coming actually from the platforms. But at the moment, they are kind of playing you around. So, I mean, something there, a little project here and there, but we are talking about the companies that make huge, huge profits and are destroying the information sphere. So basically, just like on your daily work, do you keep the digital companies accountable what they are doing? Are you able to do that? Are they reporting on trust-based things? Do you report on their work? And then the second, more like, are you able to cooperate on a European level? Because what I've heard in Brussels and the journalistic bodies are not very strong in keeping a united front on that type of things towards the tech companies.
Non, je ne suis pas sûr d'avoir bien compris la question. Mais si on tient les plateformes, on les met devant leurs responsabilités, c'est ça que vous demandiez?
Si vous faites le reportage sur la plateforme, comment ils fonctionnent?
Ah oui, non, pas suffisamment. Not enough. We don't talk enough about the way world is going. It's a reality now, no? For the new generation, it's the only one reality, everyday reality. And we don't talk in the traditional media enough about that. You're right. But you say audience, to keep in touch with audience, but with which algorithm? Because the point is the totally opaque reality of the platform. So we have to talk about this opacity.
And it's your own interest to explain how much better you are doing things and how much more transparent you are than the platforms. But I don't see that enough, in a way.
You're right. We try something, but not enough. You're totally right.
I see that there is also a tendency to underestimate how fast the change is going, like how fast everything happens. And then there is always just one discourse that fits into the, into the agenda about social media. This is maybe a stupid example, but we had this discussion maybe about 10 or more years ago that we should treat these platforms like publishers, and they should also have some rules. Now, when I see that how, for example, journalistic media is covering these tech giants, this discussion is there is not so much anymore this discussion, but because now we are talking about mental health and how bad the kids are doing, now we are comparing to the tech giants to drug sellers like you did. so that's and now we are talking about the health view, but we completely forgot about that they are also platforms that should have rules as publishers. So we are able to fit just one story at the time about the tech giants, and now it's this medical thing that the kids are not feeling good because they just use TikTok, and we need to regulate them like they are some sort of drugs or something. Toivottavasti sait selvää tästä vastauksesta.
No.
Would you like to add something?
There is also sorry.
Go ahead.
A tendency I see with my colleagues that, for example, the interview, the kind of the classical interview with a politician, no? Young colleagues tend to think it is boring. It's they are lying, it's not interesting, you occupy a lot of space for nothing, real people is better than an interview with a politician. No? Very often I heard that. For me it's very dangerous, because as you can observe, Dictator never give interviews, and aspirant dictator neither. And in our democracy, it's not a rule that a candidate refuse to participate to a debate, television debate. It's very recent, this phenomenon, because until 10 years ago, it was inconceivable that an American election could happen without a real debate. You can believe the debate is a fake one, you can believe the journalist is zero journalist, you can believe whatever you want, but it's democracy, no? So the standard of exigence has been always, year after year, been less strong, and we have to put it again with new tools, but where it was, to ask responsible, to be accountable of what they are doing, even they are a big economic player or a politician. And I see in our democracy the tendency to say, okay, so it's only communication, it's not any more information. And communication in the last 20 years, it's not a hazard, has been hypertrophied, no? In every way. The mayor of the city, the government, they have a team of communicators, incredible, no? For communication. We need information, not communication.
Great. That is, I'm afraid, all the time we had. I want to thank you all, Laurent Marchand, Judith Fiebelkorn, and Robert Sundman, for this very interesting, very intense discussion, and not so easy discussion on the what can we do to think about how our independence of media can in the future become better and better. And thank you to the audience for asking good additional questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.